Roll up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of The Truck Stops Here, brought to you by NATSO. Now, here's your host, Amy Toner.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner, and today I have a special guest, Ms. Chris Schoessler. She's NATSO COO. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Christine is the one in the office that if you read about new technology, you go and tell her. So I had to bring her on as our special guest. I know you get excited about this stuff.
I do. I think it's usually me running down to your office, interrupting you, saying, hey, look what I just read.
You are listening to The Truck Stops Here, the NATSO Foundation's podcast. The NATSO Foundation is the research, education, and public outreach subsidiary of NATSO, and the podcast is just one of the many educational tools we offer. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Peter Rasmussen. He's the CEO and founder of Convenience and Energy Advisors. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So we have a bunch of questions for you. In fact, we had so many questions we had to cut some. But before we get to the questions, I thought you could just tell us about you and your company. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So I'm a longtime convenience store retailer. I spent nearly 2 decades with Wawa, and my team and I were a boutique consulting and managed services firm. Mm-hmm. And we focus exclusively on the convenience store, truck stop, and travel center industry. And what we do is we don't just advise and help truck stops, travel centers, and convenience stores, but what we like to say is we actually do the work as well. So, should a single store or a larger chain be going through any sort of a change or implementation of technology, we can build it, we can manage it, and then ultimately the retailer integrates it when you're ready.
You might be a familiar face and voice for people who are at NATSO Connect. You and Christine were on our technology forum, and I know you had a lot of the questions that we're talking about today are from that. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about point of sale first, which after a long time of not much movement in that space, it's starting to really evolve. Why do you think that's happening? And what questions do you get from your clients on this?
Sure. So, it's an exciting time in the industry. So, traditionally for truck stops and travel centers, you've always had to operate 2 different point of sales, right? One for your traditional C-store, one for your high flow diesel. And, quite honestly, in most cases, that is still the case today. What we're seeing, though, is we're seeing a lot of exciting development out there from multiple brands where, we think and we hope that there'll be a path in the future where those point of sales can merge, right?
Yeah.
You could do that on your back office system in some cases, but ultimately there's still the complexity of the 2 different pieces. It's an exciting time, especially because, you step outside of our industry and there's so much technology that's less expensive to use, easy, high tech, food forward, and we're starting to see innovation come our way as well, which is exciting.
Why do you think it's happening now?
It's a good question. I think as brands become more and more food forward, the demand is coming there naturally, right? So, when we look at, the future of our business, there'll always be energy, right? There'll always be fuel. There's convenience items, but food service is evolving. And the quick serve restaurant space and other parts of the restaurant industry, that's setting the new standard for what customers expect. So I think as customers expect a more, high-tech standard, things being, easier, more intuitive, then, retailers have put that demand on the providers for our industry, and we're starting to see a lot of change, which is great.
I guess there's also a lot of new builds, new companies coming into the space. It's probably an opportunity for them to get it right from the start, right?
That's a good point. I mean, truthfully, with branded oil, there's still not a lot of different options. You have more options if you're unbranded. But what's exciting that you're starting to see is a couple different things. One, a lot of open API integrations. So if you're a big retailer and you have a very large budget, you can customize everything, right? But for small to mid-sized retailers, having things that are open API, which basically plug and play, for lack of better words, is meaningful. And the other thing that's evolved as of recent is, 80% of our industry uses PDI for their back office solution. PDI developed a open commerce API where you now have platforms that can connect direct to your back office and bypass the point of sale. I'll give you one example of that. Let's say a convenience store wants to launch third-party delivery services, or maybe they want to do first-party through their app, or maybe they want to do both. Traditionally, if you didn't want to have a pile of tablets in your stores, the only way to do that would be through the point of sale. Depending on your point of sale brand, or if you have multiple point of sale brands, then you start to get complex. With PDI Open Commerce, you can connect a system called Patronics Marketplace Manager to it. Okay. And what that can do is that can be your first party ordering menu. That can go to Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, Postmates. And all of those sales reconcile into your daily forms every day. The data links to your price book, and it never actually touches your point of sale. So then you think of every day as you have your in-store register point of sale, and then you have these remote systems that all come together. So it's an exciting time. I mean, that to me is a really remarkable change.
This is why we like talking to you, because you have like the strategy and the exact systems. I love it. All right, we're gonna switch gears and talk about checkout. This is another exciting landscape. All this exciting technology is coming to our space. What advice would you give a truck stop that is looking to add self-checkout?
Sure. So, when I talk to retailers that have installed self-checkout, some love it and some are like, there's not a big take rate to it, right?
Yeah.
What I would tell you is that outside of our industry, customers are learning how to use self-checkout. And it's across all demographics. If you go to Walmart, there's self-checkout. If you go to Whole Foods, there's self-checkout, right? So people are starting to be able to use it. From a customer standpoint, customers want choice. You'll still have customers who want to engage with your employees, and that's great. You don't want to take that away. But you also have people that want to come into the store. They don't want to talk to anyone. They don't want to wait in line if, there's a queue or getting lottery, and they want to get in and out. And you want to offer that service too. As it relates to self-checkout, it's not as easy as just dropping a machine in your store. Whether you operate Gilbarco Passport, Verifone, NCR, multiple other brands, all of them have a product for it, but there's an art to the design of your self-checkout. The most simple way to describe it, without drawing out a store plan for you, is that as customers come up towards the register, you want them to pass impulse items. You want them to have to walk past your self-checkouts until they would finally get to where you would have, a cashier stationed. Also, when you set up your self-checkouts, assuming your store sells tobacco, if they're set up in a way where the tobacco wall sits behind it, that can also make an experience be easy and meaningful. Because as an example, if somebody asks for an age-restricted product, the cashier can look at that person, they can grab the age-restricted product, they can scan it, they can add it to that register, and of course they can card if need be. That keeps the experience easy versus having, say, tobacco sales only at this register. And finally, it's change management, right? So you can't just drop the machines in and hope everything works. Sometimes it does, especially if your store is located next to other retailers that have a similar like system. But I think, when retailers invest in a little bit of time to just show customers, how the system works, you'd be surprised that even those that initially wouldn't want to use it end up becoming fans of it.
Peter, you mentioned the consumer's high-tech standard, and I think self-checkout is one of those high-techs that can improve both the customer experience and the employee experience, which I think is really exciting. And I wonder if you see other things, other technology coming down the pike that'll improve the employee experience that you're excited about.
Yeah, and Christine, I think just one note on self-checkout when you talk about the employee experience, I think that's huge, right? So if you've ever rung the register for an 8-hour day, it's a lot, right? And, say you have one customer who's mean to you, it kind of affects your day. But when you're able to operate a register, but then also help others with it, you're more of a host or hostess, right? It's a more empowering position, and it's less task oriented. So it's really powerful from that perspective. So from a recruitment perspective, especially in a world where it's so hard to hire and retain, great team members, that's big. Some other pieces of technology that's coming out that could be very engaging to your employees is I'm seeing more and more retailers offer a discount on fuel. Traditionally, many retailers have, maybe a free beverage program or a discount beverage program, usually discount food. Sometimes they do free meals per shift. But fuel is starting to come across the board more and more. So one way that retailers are implementing that is through a loyalty program. So the way that works in most cases is as your employees become members of your loyalty program, you link their alt ID to your HR file. And then you set, likely a daily update on that. Then when a rewards app opens, you can have the ability to have an employee-only screen. Or even if you don't want to do that, you can just set a restriction on the loyalty. As an example, I could say that, team members can get 15 cents off a gallon. They can get as many gallons as they want, but they can only use it once a week. Or you could set the limit to 10 gallons. I think that's really quite an amazing benefit, especially just as we all look at just, how much the price of fuel can impact our wallets.
I love that you mentioned loyalty and segueing from that into customer loyalty. How important is it not just to have a loyalty program these days for your customers, but to have a rewards app as part of that program as well?
It depends. It really does, right? So if you only have a handful of stores, does a loyalty program make sense? Maybe, right? It's really hard to get someone to download your app. It's even harder to get them to type payment to it. And then it's even harder to get them to be a frequent user. But it still matters. What I would say is that, for all retailers today, what I would start with is I would say that if you have a convenience or food service offer in your store, which of course you probably at least have one of the two, one platform that you should not ignore is Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. And you may initially be thinking, well, maybe I'm in a rural area and those fulfillment options aren't out there, right? It's twofold. So one, if the ability to deliver is there in your area, then you're winning. If it's not, then you're still winning because your customers then can have the ability to order ahead and have an order that's ready for pickup, right? And some people look at those platforms and they say, well, no, I don't want to pay the surcharge for it. I hear you. In many cases, you can pass on a portion of that surcharge, or in some cases, all of it, to the consumer, and it's generally found acceptable. But the reason why you want to think about that is that, well, everybody wants to own their customer data. Well, everybody wants to have people order direct from them. It's really hard for someone to get their app. So as people travel across the country, people have on their phones DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub. You open that up and you say, I'm hungry, or you say, I'm in a need state. And if you're not on there, then you're not a part of that digital mall. The other thing is that if your truck stop or travel center is in an area where Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub have service where they deliver, which most locations do, you have a powerful edge over restaurants on the platform, because on one ticket, you can have a great food service offer, a great coffee offer, but also have all sorts of packaged goods. So you're able to fulfill need states, and you're able to compete against, restaurants as well as other channels. But I guess, going back to your question at the beginning, how important is it for, retailers today to have a loyalty program? I would say always start with Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub. I think that's a minimum, whether you have a loyalty program or not. And then if you are going to have a loyalty program, I would say you just need to make sure that it is meaningful if you want it to be successful. So if there's not a great incentive offer to sign up, why would I sign up? Are things easy and intuitive with it? Say if you want to use Apple Pay or Google Pay. Is it worth, the consumer's time and effort to open the app and use the app? So all things to kind of look at with the design of it. But the good news is that, in years past, the biggest retailers could always, of course, design, a beautiful custom app. And in many cases, small and mid-sized retailers were limited to white label apps. There's app platforms that are out there today. The most notable one is Rovertown. Rovertown's now in 70 different convenience stores across the country. And think about it like this. You have a loyalty engine, and then you have an app platform that sits on top of it, which faces the customers. And your team can easily drag and drop specials and all sorts of things on it without customization. So it's really a powerful, powerful tool that gives small to mid-sized retailers the ability to just have an absolutely beautiful app at a price per store that's reasonable.
I think that's so, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Peter, because I know from talking with you in previous conversations, technology that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the smaller organizations might have felt was out of their reach, whether it's financially or because of the labor involved. There's solutions that are coming to market now that bring those all back where a smaller independent operator can reach them today.
Yeah, you're absolutely. It's quite amazing. I mean, let's be real. I mean, even outside of the convenience industry, apps like Uber and Google, McDonald's, Dunkin', Starbucks, they've set a standard for an app being easy, an app being intuitive, right?
Right.
And, people expect that now within our industry, and we're able to deliver on that more than ever.
All right, are we ready to switch gears? We wanted to talk about social media and online. Darren and I have been talking to people for ages about how they need to monitor their presence online better. What do you think? What's your advice? Should they monitor their online reputation using Google reviews, or what do you advise people on that?
Sure. So first off, even if you're not cool with social media, you can manage this. So don't be intimidated by it. There's great platforms out there today. For larger retailers, there's Sochi. For stores that have anywhere between, or chains that have anywhere between 1 and 50 stores, there's Thriver. And the way that these platforms work is it'll monitor your online reputation and bring everything into one dashboard for you as a retailer. So on that dashboard, you have the ability to see what your reviews are on Google. You can see what they are on, Facebook, other travel platforms, and it allows you to respond and, start to build your reputation. What it also does is when you initially sign up, it gives you the ability to clean up. So what you may find when you look at some of your locations is, let's say you bought that from another retailer through M&A. There might be multiple Google listings, and you may not own some of them. You could have a food service institution, a convenience store brand, major oil brand. All three can be listed. What happens is you initially do that cleanup cycle, and then you're able to manage everything all in one place. It's also an area where you're able to invest in search engine optimization. So as an example, if you're going down the road, maybe you Google cheap gas near me, cheap diesel near me. You want to be one of those top few listings. If you're not, the chance of being selected is rather slim. And then if you're thinking, okay, well, this is great and all, but I still don't want to do that's fine. Because but most of the services, including Sochi and Thriver, they'll also offer an outsourced managed service. So as an example, let's say a review comes on your site and it's not good. They'll respond to it on your behalf, working with language that fits within your brand. And depending on if it's a severe review, they'll forward that one to you. Or for your good reviews, which hopefully that's what most of them are, they'll engage back to those consumers as well. So it's really, really powerful. And I think today more than ever, where experiences begin online and you look at all things online, it's really important. I was on a truck stop and travel center tour in Texas a couple of weeks ago. I think I visited about 15. It was great. But as I'm learning and looking at each location, the first thing I did is, I looked at Google. So, whether it be a truck stop or a restaurant, you want to say would you eat at a place that has 2 stars? Probably not. It's an immediate write-off, right? So, you want to definitely, have your hands on it, and it's completely manageable.
Those two, it was two tools that you recommended, right? Can you just spell them for us? So people
Sure. So there's Soci, SOCI, and then there's Thriver, THRIVR.
Okay. All right. I love it. So it kind of leads us into our next topic, which is ChatGPT. Christine and I are both obsessed with it. We use it all the time for our stuff. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas of what truck stops could use them for. I did see that drive-thru was using it. Did you guys see that? Yeah. Have you seen any other ways that people are using it?
Yeah, right now I feel like everyone's experimenting with it. Right?
Yeah.
So we're learning with it. It's still free. You don't have to pay for it yet.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And it's interesting too, because you talk to kids in school are using it to write papers, and you say, well, I wish I had that when I was in school. Do you still have thinking skills? But then you're saving the time as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes come from it, and it's new, it's developing, and it's exciting.
So, what are you most excited about in the travel center world?
I think the most exciting thing in the truck stop and travel center world is certainly the amount of interest that there has been in our space, right? Certainly that brings more competition to the space. Competition makes us all better. But we're seeing so many traditional convenience brands step into the industry and, just realize how high potential and special our industry is. So, I'm loving the evolution and the competitiveness that creates.
So we thought we'd just end with an easy question, which is, what do you think the next 5 years will bring? No pressure.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, in the next 5 years, I think we all hope that we'll be operating on a single point of sale, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That would certainly be a big win for our industry. But the other thing that I think we'll see from an evolution is truck stops and travel centers are going to continue to become a destination. Even as EV and fuel evolves, right? Because the Great American Road Trip still exists. People still need to stop for hunger. They need to stop because they need to use the restroom and certainly to enjoy convenience essentials. So as energy transitions, I think the truck stop and travel center industry just really has a leading edge to continue to be a pillar of the future.
Okay, so we're going to ask you our fun questions before we let you go. But first, I wanted you to let people know how they can get a hold of you, because clearly you know what you're doing in our space.
Thank you so much. So I could be reached at peter@convenienceandenergyadvisors.com. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay. All right. You ready for the fun questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. What's your go-to on the road snack?
Probably something that's not that good for me. Sweet or salty snack.
Okay. If you're stuck at a truck stop in a snowstorm, how would you pass the time?
Well, if my 3-year-old is with me, I would be trying to entertain him and probably buying toys at the truck stop. Or if it's me, I would have probably watching movies around me.
I think toys are like a great thing to have at truck stops. When I see them, I always feel like they have a good merchandiser. You don't see it that many.
Yeah, it's good for business, but bad for parents, because my son refers to some truck stops as the toy store. So that's not good.
That's true. That's like, how Darren always tells people to put the candy at the bottom. It's like, it's smart retailing, but it's kind of annoying when you come in.
Yep.
Okay. Do you prefer to ride or drive?
Drive.
Okay. How do you take your truck stop coffee?
Black.
Okay. And the last one is the controversial question, which is it a truck stop, travel center, or travel plaza?
Let's go with truck stop.
All right. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Truck Stops Here. You can find us online at natso.com/podcast. If you have any questions, reach out to me at editor@natso.com. All right. Thanks. Bye, guys.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by NATSO in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.